Hello everyone. I'm Basil Anil, and this is my student ID. I'm here to talk about the laws for business in Brazil, and this is for the legal risk in business class in the Masters in Management program in Trent University. So let's jump right into it. The Canadian government are known for its business relationship with several countries, and obviously this presentation focuses on Brazil. So Brazil is a nation known for its culture and natural beauty and thriving markets. It has undertaken significant legal reforms in recent years to attract and inspire various forms of investment. These reforms have created an environment conducive to business growth and have opened doors to new possibilities for Canadian firms looking to expand their operations. So, in my exploration of Brazil's business landscape, two laws stand out as particularly intriguing and relevant for Canadian firms: the Labor Reform Act of 2017 and Data Protection Act of 2018. These two laws have brought about significant changes in Brazilian business environment, presenting both challenges and opportunities for companies seeking to establish a presence in the promising market. So now let's talk about the Labor Reform Act. The Labor Reform Act of the 2017 introduced a range of measures aimed at enhancing flexibility in the labor market. This legislation allows for individual agreements between employers and employees, providing increased opportunities for negotiation and tailoring of employment conditions. We will dwell in the merit and demerit of this law, analyzing its potential impact of Canadian firms seeking to enter the Brazilian market. So the provisions it aimed to modernize the labor market, increase flexibility, and foster business competitiveness. The key provisions of the law include more flexible working hours, new rules for overtime and vacation accrual, changes in collective bargaining agreements, and the creation of individual agreements. And so now let's go to the merits of the labor reform law. Obviously, one of the main objectives of the labor reform was to increase flexibility in the labor market. The law introduced provisions such as the possibility of negotiating individual agreements between employers and employees, allowing for more tailored working conditions, and agreements that better suit for both parties. The second one is the simplified labor procedures. The labor reform aimed to simplify labor procedures by implementing electronic means for document submission, reducing bureaucracy, and streamlining process. This simplification can improve efficiency and reduce administrative burdens for business, making it easier for Canadian firms to navigate the Brazilian labor market and focus more on the core competencies. Next one is, and the final one is the modernization of labor law. The labor reform sought to modernize labor laws in Brazil to adapt to the evolving work environment. It addressed issues such as remote work, telecommuting, and part-time employment, providing a legal framework to regulate these new forms of work that have emerged with technological advancement. Now let's look into the demerits. So the demerits of the labor reform law was, the first one is the weakened protection of workers' privileges. So labor reform weakened worker protection by allowing greater flexibility. I believe that the increased individual negotiation power of employers may lead to unequal bargaining positions and potentially disadvantage employees. So which may nudge the Canadian organizations in a direction that is unethical. And the second one is the negative influence on brand equity. Depending on the organization's industry and values, the perceived impact of the Labor Reform Act on worker rights and labor conditions may affect its reputation and brand image. So the organizations must be proactive in communicating their commitment to fair labor practices and compliance with relevant regulations to build trust and maintain a positive reputation in the Brazilian market. The third one is there will be tensions between the labor force and management. The labor reform introduced more flexibility in employment contracts. This can impact collective bargaining and weaken the collective voice of workers. Organizations may face challenges in managing labor relations and negotiating agreements with trade unions or workers' representatives. So, how can the Canadian firms utilize this law to their advantage? So, the first one is the customized agreements with each employee. The labor reform law introduced provisions that allow for more flexibility in employment contracts. Canadian firms can take advantage of this flexibility by negotiating individual agreements with employees that align with their specific business needs. The second one is the simplified labor and documentation procedures, which increases efficiency and helps in focusing on core operation, thereby increasing the productivity. So, electronic means for document submission and streamlined administrative processes can reduce bureaucratic hurdles, saving time and resources for the businesses. Third one is the flexibility in the working schedules. The employer and employee can work it out between themselves and give them individual agreements according to their needs and according to the company's needs. And the last one is the opportunity to bring in workforce according to the market need. So the labor reform law introduced provisions that allow for more flexibility in employment contracts. Canadian firms can take advantage of this flexibility by negotiating individual agreements with employees that align with their specific business needs. This can include customized working hours, remuneration structures, and benefits that are mutually beneficial for both the employer and employee. All right. Now let's look into the General Data Protection Law. It was enacted in year 2018. It is Brazil's comprehensive data protection legislation inspired by the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation. The LGPD regulates the processing of personal data and establishes individual right, data controller and processor obligations, data breach notification requirements, and rules for international data transfers. So now let's look into the merits and demerits of the General Data Protection Law in the perspective of a Canadian organization. So, I would like to add the companies that violated the law will be subject to application of warnings, fines, embargoes, suspensions, and partial or total bans. So the merits of the data protection law is it sets standard for the increased data privacy. It enhances data privacy and security by setting standards for the collection, use, and processing of personal data. It establishes guidelines for organizations and on how to handle personal information responsibly, promoting transparency, accountability, and consent-based practices. The second one is the framework aligns with the international standard. So LGPD is obviously influenced by the global data protection framework, particularly the European Union's data protection regulation. By aligning with the LGPD, Canadian businesses entering the Brazilian market can showcase the compliance with the international data protection standards. Third one is the competitive advantage by attracting customers. There are a lot of data privacy conscious customers in Brazil, and by complying with LGPD, they can provide a safe space for these customers and earn trust and loyalty from these customers too. Now, the demerits of the General Data Protection Law is the compliance cost and burdens. Implementing and maintaining compliance with the LGPD can entail huge costs and administrative burdens for businesses. This includes implementing data protection measures, conducting impact assessments, appointing a data protection officer, and managing data breach notifications. The second one is regulatory complexity. The LGPD is a comprehensive legislation with several provisions and requirements which may be difficult to maneuver. It may require businesses to make significant adjustment to the data processing practices, including consent mechanisms, data retention policies, and cross-border data transfers. And the third one is the non-compliances can lead to huge penalties. The violations of the law can result in fines, sanctions, or reputational damage, as I said before. As a Canadian organization, they can use this data protection law to their advantage by complying to the data protection law and building trust. By proactively complying with the LGPD, your firm can demonstrate a commitment to data privacy and protection. This can build trust with Brazilian customers who are increasingly concerned about their personal data. And the second one is it encourages to enhance the organization's data security measures. The LGPD encourages the organizations to implement strong data security measures. Use this opportunity. They can use this opportunity to enhance your firm's data security practices, such as encrypting sensitive data, implementing access controls, and regularly monitoring and assessing your IT systems. So they can also apply this in Canada as well if the system is like strong, like it is protected well enough in Brazil, then they can also implement it in other countries as well. The third one is the focuses on the transparency in data processing, which can increase customer trust and loyalty. It provide it can it implies us to implies the firm to provide easily accessible privacy policies and consent mechanisms and ensure customers have a clear understanding of how their data is collected, used, and shared. And the fourth one is the agreement between the international standard. If the Canadian organization is already in compliance with the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, then it can serve as a foundation for LGPD compliance. The LGPD shares similarities with the GDPR, allowing you to leverage your existing GDPR compliance efforts and adapt them to meet the specific requirements of the LGPD. The last one is collaborating with data protection professionals, and they can provide guidance on interpreting the law, assist with compliance efforts, and ensure your firm's practices align with the LGPD's requirement. Their expertise can help you navigate the complexity of law and ensure your firm is well positioned to capitalize on the opportunity presented by the LGPD. So, in short, we discussed about the two interesting laws that influences the businesses in Brazil highly. The first one is the labor reform law, which determines all the human resources relations, payroll, and contracts. The second one is the Data Protection Act, which determines and controls the security, transparency, and standards of the data the company collect or need to provide. The Canadian firms can use this law to improve their position in Brazilian market and further move into the Brazilian market, but they have to be careful about the challenges of these laws. These are my references, and thank you.